Good afternoon. This is Jim Whitehead of All Power Group and Phoenix Animal. You know, the wonderful part of our life that animals are just wonderful. And of course, as you know, and I'm sure you've seen them, different service dogs that are trained to help people with handicaps. Today we're going to talk about, and I didn't even know that there was an actual, in this case, a diabetic alert dog. Just didn't know. And the faith I have that they all can be trained. Every dog, I know there's certain dogs a little bit more geared toward this, but I think any dog can be trained as a service dog for a variety of different things. Now, in this case, we're going to talk about a 7-year-old. Her name is Maya. She was a brilliant, she's in the brilliant student. She was, in this particular day, she was in a sun-drenched playground, but one with a hidden, terrifying fault line. Living with type 1 diabetes, Maya was a whirlwind of energy, all flying pigtails, and she would scrape her knees often, oblivious to the silent, invisible war being waged within her own body. And you know, as I talk about, I have type 2 diabetes, and that's all more age-related, and you get it in later life. It isn't really, it's just your pancreas that it does secrete insulin to balance out blood sugars. As we get to be our age, I'm 75, it doesn't work as well as it did before. So you have to be on medication. You have to try to do your best on keeping, not eating a lot of sweets. So, but Maya has type 1. And when you have type 1 as a child, it is a scary situation because, again, they're kids and they want to eat what they want to eat, but also they don't always know how they feel or what, if they do feel not so good, they're not sure exactly why. But anyway, with this situation, her blood sugar could plummet with frightening speed and sudden treacherous drop that could steal her consciousness before anyone even knew something was wrong. So, they knew, and I'm not sure exactly how much earlier, but they said, look, we have to have somebody with her, in essence, 24/7. And no parent can be with their child, even if they would want to be, 24/7. We have to sleep, yada, 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 yada. And I'm not saying dogs don't have to sleep, but they can nap, and, they know that they have a job. They have a duty to save and keep someone alive. Anyway, her guardian against this unseen enemy was a gentle giant named Barnaby. And, golden retrievers, we have all different types of dogs. So it isn't where you say, well, no, only this dog can do it or that dog can do it. No, they can all be trained. Some might be a little bit more, how would you say, geared up to do this versus that, but bottom line, they can be trained. A Bernese mountain dog whose calm demeanor belied the extraordinary sensitivity of his senses. Barnaby was a diabetic, alert dog trained not to fetch or guide, but to smell the infinitesimal chemical changes in Maya's saliva and breath that signaled a dangerous hypoglycemic event. And, when hypoglycemia, when you end up having, when your blood sugar gets extremely low, your body can't function. So having, Barnaby right next to her, with her all the time, he knew what to look for. To the outside world, Barnaby was Maya's devoted furry shadow. He'd lay his massive head on her lap during story time and patiently allow her to adorn him with unicorns. Animals and dogs that just, they're like, hey, I like doing anything. I'm here with you and let's just have some fun. So there's Barnaby with the unicorns, and he's just saying, well, she's okay at this point, so let her do what she needs to do. But his presence was constant, vigilant watch in the park as Myra scrambled up the slide. Barnaby's playfulness was secondary to his primary mission. And that would be, and he would pause, lift his great head, and take a long, deliberate sniff of the air around her. Now, there you go. You see Barnaby saying, do things smell like there's a problem? Well, he did. He picked it up. And again, God bless, they have such noses, and they can pick up the fact that she's going to have or heading toward a diabetic incident. So here he is there. You can see he's ready to go. The first time it happened, Maya's parents, Sarah and Ben, almost missed it. They were at the bustling family picnic, the air thick with the scent of cut grass and barbecue. Maya was chasing her cousins, her laughter pealing through the summer afternoon. Suddenly, Barnaby, who had been lazily observing from the shade, stood up with purpose. He trotted directly to Maya, ignoring the other children, and began nudging her hand insistently with his wet nose, because he knows something is cooking here. Something is happening. Maya, annoyed, tried to push him away. Now, the dog wouldn't say, oh, you don't like me, so I'm going to stop what I'm doing. It knows that it has to ensure that she's going to be okay. So, as Maya said, or Maya said, I'm playing, so kind of, cool it. But Barnaby was persistent. He nudged her again, harder this time, and then let out a single low woof, a sound he rarely made. So again, they're trained where if you had a dog that barked all the time, how do you know when there's really a problem? You don't. So, he is trained and he's going to keep doing what he has to do. He then went straight to her and poured at her leg, his brown eyes full of unmistakable urgency. So he knows something is wrong. "What is it, boy?" Sarah asked, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. Ben, the husband, grabbed the glucose meter. Maya, annoyed at the interruption, insisted she felt fine. The finger prick was quick. The result was stark: 58 milligrams per DL. And typical blood sugars, I won't test you on this, but typical blood sugars are in the 100 range, give or take. And of course, you can be much higher. But when you get down to 58, you are getting close to a diabetic coma. And it isn't even something that you can say, well, it's going to take 10 minutes. No, it just can happen. And that's why Barnaby is there to make sure. It was a very dangerous drop, still minutes away from causing noticeable symptoms, but a crisis in the making. Now, what you generally do to treat a diabetic that's going in this direction is, and in this case, they gave her a drink that has some sugar in it. And again, if your blood sugar is low, and I don't mean you load up crazy on things that are sugar, but they give her and they carry this with them, so that they can, if Barnaby says, "Hey, we got a problem here," that they pull out whatever they need to do to make it where she has her blood sugar going back up into a safe area. And again, these are things that are very hard to predict. And you hope that a child with type 1 diabetes will grow out of it, but some don't. They have it for the rest of their life, and they have to basically be managed like this. So as Myra's my wife's name, but Maya drank her juice box, her energy returning with the life-saving sugar. Sarah, her mom, knelt and wrapped her arms around Barnaby's thick neck. He had caught what they couldn't see. He had sensed the invisible danger long before their machines or their own eyes could detect it. He was living, breathing, early warning system. And you give dogs credit. This is their full-time job. This isn't like, they have weekends off. No, this is their full-time job, and they love it. They love it. And I had one where I saw where they were training dogs, and they had a whole bunch of kids that had problems. And the dogs were all sitting there, and they'd been trained, and it was time for them to match the dog to the young person. And you could see the dogs just saying, "Please, choose me, choose me, choose me." I mean, really, this wasn't like, "Oh, no, I don't want it. Oh, I'm lazy today." No, the dogs are saying, "Come on, I'm ready." So that is darn cool. The most profound test of their bond came in the dead of night. It was a quiet Tuesday, unremarkable in every way. Myra had gone to bed with a stable blood sugar. So they must have tested her with the glucose meter before she went to bed and made sure everything is the way it should be. And in theory, you would say, well, when you're sleeping, your body slows down, your heart rate slows down, your breathing slows down. So your body's not using as much of its resources. But that doesn't mean that we can't have a problem. So Sarah and Ben, her parents, they were asleep. The house still dark. Around 3 a.m., Barnaby stirred from his bed on the floor next to Maya. He rose, stretched his great frame, and padded to her bedside. He sniffed her sleeping face. As you can see, there's his nose. Once, then twice. His body stiffened. The scent was there, the faint, acrid tang of plummeting glucose. He nudged her face with his nose. Maya, deep in sleep, just rolled over. He nudged her again. And you can, here he is. It's dark. He can't see, but he's really knowing something is going downhill. He nudged her again, more forcefully. Nothing. This was the critical moment his training had prepared him for. So, in other words, if Maya was sleeping, and how do you know the difference in a way? I don't mean Barnaby, he does. But if I was the father and I went in and I said, oh, she looks fine, she's doing, she's asleep. Well, Barnaby could not wake her up. So there is, and maybe the parent wouldn't have done that. They might have just said, well, she looks comfortable and everything's fine, and it wasn't. So anyway, he's like saying, look, I can't get her aroused. We've got a very short time to solve this problem and take care of this. So he left the room, his paws silent on the hardwood floor, and went directly to Sarah and Ben's bedroom. He placed his heavy front paws on the edge of the bed and began to whine a low guttural sound of distress. When they failed to arouse them, when he failed to arouse them, he escalated. He's saying, you're not going to just roll over and go back to sleep. So what he did, and they had this in the system, they had an emergency button, an alarm. And he was taught that, if I can't get these people up to take care of Maya, I'm going to push the button. So he hit the specifically installed large button on the wall next to their door with his nose. Wow. A loud, piercing alarm separate from the home's smoke detectors blared through the house. So in other words, this is a separate sounding alarm. This alarm is only for one purpose. And if you hear it, there's a problem. And you know what the problem is. It basically is Maya is having a problem, and this could be a good, happy ending, or it may not be. So Ben and Sarah jolted awake, their hearts pounding with terror. They knew that the alarm was the last resort. They went to Maya, and she was drenched in cold sweat, her breathing shallow, unresponsive. Her blood sugar was dangerously, critically low. While Ben administered the emergency glucagon shot, and this is again a shot, Sarah called 911. So Barnaby had said, hey, we got a problem. No one's listening to me, but now I'm going to put the alarm. Now you know. And the parents jumped into action. And her father gave her a glucagon shot, which is basically sugar in so many words. Anyway, and as I said, Sarah, the mother, called 911, her hand shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. The paramedics who arrived moments later were clear. Had Barnaby not alerted them, Maya likely would have slipped into a diabetic coma or worse. And again, this is reality. This is not what you would say, oh, we're just making it sound potentially worse than it is. No. Type 1 diabetes, crisis, they can go into a diabetic coma and die. When I was in the hospital setting as a respiratory therapist when I was young, we a lot of times would have type 1 diabetics in the emergency room, but they would come into intensive care unit. So again, these are issues of where they could almost die. And luckily, with Barnaby being there and the resources they had put together, paramedics arrived. She had received the glucagon shot and rushed to the hospital. Later that morning, after the crisis has passed and the sun was once again streaming through the windows, Sarah found Maya sitting up in bed, sharing a piece of apple with her savior. And I know the tough thing with type 1 diabetes, I know when I was a kid, I was fine. I would have cookies, chocolate chip cookies, and it's like you don't think that there's an issue. And it wasn't because I wasn't technically a diabetic, but, we all would eat candy bars, and I hate to say it, it's embarrassing, but that's what we would do. Anyway, Maya said, he's a good boy. Her voice small but clear, her hand resting on Barnaby's massive, furry head. He's my best boy. Barnaby just looked up, his tail wagging, and he gave a steady thump against the mattress. He wasn't a hero in the traditional sense. He didn't pull anyone from a fire or rushing river. His heroism was quieter, more mysterious. It was the trust of his senses in the unwavering dedication to his small human. He was the guardian who stood watch over the invisible, the furry sentinel who could smell a storm coming long before the sky ever changed color, ensuring that Maya's world could remain a sun-drenched playground, safe and full of light. So I think he's a hero, and I want to thank you for watching. And again, I'm going to be I do different series. It's kind of fun. As a YouTuber, you have to kind of keep it interesting for me and you, hopefully. And I think, and I've been around service dogs because I was in healthcare for many, many years, and I would go to nursing homes, and they would bring in, well, sometimes service dogs, but sometimes dogs that were just wonderful to actually have it where you might have a person, an elderly person in a nursing home, and they're kind of unfortunately out in left field. Yeah, we're all heading that way, but bottom line, it would be where a lot of times the elderly person, they would see the dog or dogs, and they would be like they woke up from a deep sleep. I was so amazed at how animals would make people who were like lost in space kind of come and be alert for a little bit. It's just so wonderful. And one little other interesting story, and again, how animals are smart. I worked around a nursing home, many nursing homes actually, in my healthcare career. And there was a facility over in Bradenton, Florida. I would go every week, and was helping with services and marketing and so on and so forth. And they had a cat, and the cat wasn't even trained to do this. This is a little sad, but, that is the way life goes when you're in a nursing home. You're kind of getting close to end of life. And this cat, and as I said, was not trained to do this, but this cat, if you saw, I don't remember the cat's name, but if you saw this cat on one of the residents' bed next to the resident, you would know, unfortunately, that resident, and I don't mean they were like just about to pass away. They could be whatever, 2 days, 3 days. No one would know, and you wouldn't know at all. There's a problem. But the cat would sit with that, resident. And when we'd see the cat with a particular resident, we knew, unfortunately, that resident was going to die in a relatively short time. And I don't mean like hours, it could be days, couple days, 3 days. But the cat knew. And in a lot of cases, the cat would be with the resident and make them feel better. And they might not even know that they were kind of getting close, but the cat would be there to say, I'm going to be here with you and hopefully make you feel better. So this is why, honestly, I do animals. Admittedly, this happy stories that I like to put forth related to animals is certainly not anything like all of what we're seeing on YouTube with all the political issues and what have you. And yes, I am a G-rated channel, which, in itself is good. But a lot of times, unfortunately, people don't like G-rated movies. So they sometimes like all this controversy, and this person's against that person. This person's lying. This person is getting fired. I mean, it's not even where you'd say, you know, this is information that I want to be spending every day bringing to you. Yes, the channel would be probably doing much better in the sense of the number of subscribers and what we call watch hours, but you have to be true to yourself. And I would only feel that if I got into where, and I've done a little here and there with animals and animals doing better than the current administration. So I know I've dabbled a little bit in it, but it isn't something I really enjoy doing. It's things like this that just make me feel so good. But anyway, thank you very much for being here. And we all will someday have to meet our maker, you might say, and hopefully we have animals that are by our side. But thank you again, and I want to thank you for subscribing, and any comments would be appreciated. Take care. Thank you again.